Welcome back to the DevOps track here at PyCon AU 2020. We are extremely online and streaming all day. Thank you so much for everyone who has been here, either as a participant or as a speaker. It's been a fabulous program so far, and we continue. Here this afternoon, we have Rory Preddy here to talk to us about Python for accessibility. Now, Rory works in developer relations team at Microsoft as a senior cloud advocate. And the cloud advocates use their deep research skills to help professional cloud developers discover and successfully use Microsoft platforms. And he's a seasoned speaker whose talks are both meaningful and humorous. Rory travels around the world, or he did in the before times, empowering developers to achieve more. And he is here today to share his talk with us. So welcome, Rory.
Thank you so much. This talk today is an important talk for me because you can see that I have dwarfism, achondroplasia, and I've been speaking around the world on this talk, Dubai, San Francisco, Singapore, on accessibility for all. And it's a lot to take in 25 minutes, but I'm going to try my best and some live demos also. You can follow me on Twitter on @RoryPreddy. I do 50% programmer humor and 50% cloud updates. You can also get all of these slides on https://ms/for-all. Or scan the QR code. It will be available at the end of the presentation. A little bit about me, I bolt on everything. So I'm small, I'm short, and these are my car pedals, my midlife crisis, my BMW 335i, and I bolt them on to try and get around in life. I also use whatever I can to get my way around the world. And you can see here, this is me trying to get coffee, and I make a plan. And just like I make a plan, the developers try to make a plan at one point. I think this was the early 2000s, the manifesto for Agile software development, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over customer collaboration, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. And this was a revolution because it really said we want to do software. We understand how to do software. And this is a theme that we're going to do there because we want to do accessibility software in the Agile way. But we find that Agile left us a little bit disdain. You can see here, this is an open office that Agile kind of created also. Can you imagine trying to actually go in and clean that fish tank? We also learned with Agile how to clean whiteboards. These are magnificent boards that, and flappy and digital and everything. We also learned how to stick Post-it notes. I went on 2 courses on how to stick a Post-it note. You hold the Post-it note there, you take your finger and you gently scrape the Post-it note up to not disturb the glue. But that wasn't the point of Agile, was it? And what happened, and Agile was also supposed to stop the Hydra. So if you don't know the Hydra, this is the bug Hydra. And the bug Hydra really is if you create a bug, then the next bug will come up and rear its ugly head. And you chop one of the heads off, and it just carries on creating more bugs. And that's really what Agile tried to do. It also tried to create aligned autonomy. So aligned autonomy, if you don't know this, by Daniel H. Pink, then we're going to give our teams 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And it really created a revolution to try and get that process driven. It also promised Ikigai. So Ikigai is the coming together of what you're good at, what the world needs, what you love, and what you get paid for. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. What has this got to do with accessibility? But Ikigai is important because when you get an accessibility issue and you say, who wants to fix this? The only people who put their hands up are bank robbers, preachers, DJs, cops, and on a roller coaster. Because unfortunately, with Agile, it was aligned to software development. With accessibility, we live in an empathy bubble. And I'm not saying that to actually diminish your ability to help others. What I'm saying that is just that we don't have the ability to personify another person's accessible requirements because we're not them. So how do we actually start to do that? Because if not, we're going to fail. If we don't understand the little bit of accessible requirements that each person needs, then we will design our software to fail, like you can see here in this accessible ramp. So the plan, I'm going to give you a plan today in 20 minutes. Define accessibility, understand your organization's unique accessibility modifiers, set achievable interim milestones, implement tools, and then measure, improve, and automate. So let's start immediately. Accessibility. What is accessibility? It's the design of products, services, and environments so that everyone, including people with disability, can fully experience them. That's not to design for disability, that's designed for products to create innovation. This is a key theme that we're going to be driving here, that once you design for everyone, then you create innovation. I'm going to show you how a little bit later how we're going to do that. And a key theme also is to define disability. When you go to the doctor, you say, I'm not feeling too good, the doctor's not going to say to you, oh, I think you have the disability. The only time that you feel disabled is when you have a mismatched human interaction. I recently, as part of my mental health crisis, lost a lot of weight, and I bought a scale, and I popped into the scale, and I dropped on in and had a little setting for weight, and I put my weight in there, and then I had another setting that I wanted to put my height, and it actually called me names, terrible names, and I said, why are you calling me those names? And I realized I felt disabled on that actual physical scale, and that's really how you could define disability. It doesn't exist until the person can't do something. So let's define also accessibility with the design principles. Perceivable, can you see it? So if you design something accessible, you need to understand, can you see it? Visually impaired people. Operable, can you use it? Using your keyboard, being able to navigate. Understandable, can you understand it? And we've also started to define accessibility as being ADHD, autism spectral, and other spectrums. Robust, it won't break future technologies. Being able to create a responsive design website is very important for people who have accessibility requirements, because a lot of them actually use their mobile device as the key input to your website or app. So these are the 4 principles that we must adhere to if you want to make it accessible. We also have now motivators. Now, motivators could be legislation. So legislation, the US First Century Integrated Digital Experience Act, the American Act, and then the EU Parliament Directive on Digital Accessibility that said that we all have to be the Web Center for Accessibility 2.1 AA compliant, or like Canada did, $100,000 fine per day if you're not a civil site that is customer facing. So that's a motivator, but we don't want to use the stick, we want to use the carrot. And like Bill Gates said, for most of human history, we put our innovative capacity into improving the quantity of life. Because we're living longer, our focus is starting to shift towards improving the quality of life. The carrot, we should do it because we're altruistic, but we also need to drive and be aware of other people's difficulties, not only improve the quality of life, but also start to actually understand the individual. So here's Ron. He's an 82-year-old retired person. He's got multiple conditions. He's got failing eyesight. How do we actually design towards Ron? You do that by creating empathy labs. So there are those free empathy labs you can do. You can even ask organizations to come in there, and this will actually start to create that and pop that empathy bubble around what you're trying to do, and also introduce you to the world that they live in. So once we have that, let's look at how to do inclusive design. First, recognize exclusion. Have those persona spectrums. 2, solve for 1, extend to many, and I'll show you now with a nice example of how to do that. And 3, learn from diversity. So we've got our persona spectrums. In this persona spectrum, we've got an amputee who is missing an arm. We also have an arm injury, and we also have a new parent who's cradling a baby. And I know what you're saying, a new parent isn't really, has accessibility needs, but if you speak to a new parent, you'll know that they have financial, spiritual, mental, sleep deprivation. They really do. Now, if you go to your boss and you say, I want to design a system for the person who's got an amputee, he'll say to you, there's only 26,000 of them. This is the US Center for Statistics, but the temporary disability is 13 million. The situational disability is another 8 million. There means 21 million people, and you can justify that in the business spectrum because it's a spectrum. Now, when you take the people who have accessibility requirements, there's 1 billion people in the world right now who have accessibility requirements. Take their friends, family, and people who are heavily invested in them. 3 billion people right now need that accessibility help. That's more than a quarter or a third of the world that is your target audience. You take your persona spectrums, you superimpose it on a scenario. So this is a ticketing scenario, buying a ticket to fly an airplane. You get registration, navigation, and checkout. You superimpose that persona spectrum on, then you can see it changes the way that we look at the interaction. We have responsive design, captures, single sign-on, callback helps, one button access, voice search, SMS and email, and then one button access. And then right at the end, we have AI adjustment. Because we need to understand, did this work for the person? I remember having a digital assistant, and I was screaming at this thing because it couldn't understand my South African accent. And I thought to myself, if this thing doesn't understand me, and I had accessibility requirements, why isn't it responding to me in an emotional way? And Microsoft and Apple and Amazon actually built in emotional intelligence into their assistants from recently, because they understand that a lot of people use them for more than just fun and games. They need those assistants. So use your AI adjustment to learn from the experience. Let's look at milestones next. So this is the typical system development life cycle. You can see right at the end, they've got a bolt-on for accessibility, which is the old school mindset. But with shift left, I can do a jump here. With the shift left mindset, then we're moving accessibility from a large investment on that side to small bits of investment. So it makes it not right at the end. So you have accessibility via the milestones before the shippable product, before the actual sprint, and continuously in there. And I'm going to show you some tools on how to actually be able to do that. So it's important to plan your milestones from the beginning all the way to the end. How do you do that? And this is really the important part of this, and I'm going to enable you via the tool sets. So the first one is Xcore by DQ Labs. Xcore is a JavaScript library, but it can be wrapped in every language, including Python. And it's a NPM package. It scans a rendered DOM or an app and reports back as JSON, the same engine that we use at Microsoft use in our accessibility insights. So accessibility insights, if you don't know that, it's the main tool that we use to check Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows, all of the tools that you see, all of the forward-facing sites, we're mandated to make sure that we do them. We use Xcore. So how it works, you've got a developer or a DevOps pipeline, you run your tests, which we're going to see now also, you have your test page, and then you get your Selenium or your test driver there to report back on your test results. You also have the ability to run that in your DevOps pipelines via, and there's a nice example there of X pipeline samples. This is running TypeScript, but I have a nice example I'm going to show you running in Flask. And you can run these in a continuous way, and we're doing that right now on all of the major Microsoft products: Windows, Office, Azure DevOps, Azure, and it'll print a report of your test results. And then finally, also, I want to impress on you the fact that one is find the errors that you can see in the beginning. Remember the shift left. 2 is be able to test with accessibility insights via the browser. But 3 is if you're not able to do that, use the cognitive service immersive reader, and this will convert your entire website into a compliant WCAG site with minimal impact. So there's 3 ways to do it: at the beginning, in the middle, while you're designing, and at the end. There's no reason for you to not actually be able to do that via the tool sets that I've mentioned. So what can Immersive Reader do? It can identify language. English is a horrid language to learn as a second language. It translates into 60 different languages, and also pronunciate and give you that back in text to speak. Syllables, it can break up syllables, and then it can even show you the picture of the word that you're trying to identify. So let's do a demo quickly. I promised you code. So the first demo that we're going to do is in Visual Studio Code. And I've got a page here, static web page with some accessibility issues. This text has no accessibility label. The color contrast is too low. This text has an invalid row span. So I've got this running here, and I'm going to test this now with the browser plugin. So I can go browser plugin and I can go fast pass, and it'll tell me immediately that it's got some ARIA roles, color contrast, and label issues there. And it'll even tell me that I can file this issue, inspect the HTML. And this is the Edge plugin, Chrome plugin that you can get accessibility insights for web. But I want to do this in Python because we're doing a Python conference right now. So I've got the project open right now in tests, and I've got testx.py. And this right now is going to run against the exact same page I showed you, that test page there. And it imports the X engine there, and you can go in and run that. And this, we can even debug it. Let's debug it there. We're going to do that checkpoint there. And it should actually come back with those three, just those three inputs there. I'm going to go inspect. Let's go mouse over violations, and it gives us back those three issues that we have. And you can run this inside your DevOps toolchain. And this is actually a sample that they provide for you as part. And all of these demos are available at the end of the session. Next demo that I want to show you, I'm just going to open the project, is the immersive reader. And I created the immersive reader beforehand, the cognitive services. Let's go X, there we go. And this is also the demo that you can actually get. And the immersive reader is pretty simple. I've got an index.html, which is the site that we're going to read. And it just says, read your content out to you, translate your content to another language. And then it has a JavaScript wrapper there that says, get the token for authentication, and then go in and create that immersive reader and pop it up into you as an async function. So I've got that running as Flask. I'll show you. I've got app.py there. Let's make that a little bit bigger. And it's just a basic Flask project. I did battle with .environment on a Mac. I had never installed Python on a Mac before. And I am a new Mac user. And I battled. I lost a weekend over that. And yeah, so now it is installed. So I get the token there, and then I send it to the HTML. And watch what Immersive Reader can actually do. So let's go to our app.py. And this is running in Azure. I'll go run the debug Flask app that we all love in Python. And then I'm going to go to command click, follow the click there. And you can see here, let me bring this back here. So this is the immersive reader site. Let me make it a little bit bigger. About immersive reader, and it's got all of the languages, and it's even got some other languages there. And I click on that, and this is the website that you would actually have if you're unable to make this immersive accessible. Because the minute I do that, this works. The minute I do that, I have an entire immersive experience, and I can actually play it. I don't think you guys can hear that. But I can also go in and create my text preferences. So I can go increase the spacing, or I can make it source forwarding, Comic Sans, anything. I can also make it easier to see the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, the adverbs, the show labels, the syllables. And then if I wanted to, I can do line focus. And this is great for kids. And I can also go over and mouse over there and go one by one for this. And you know, this is built into Office, Word, and all of the Microsoft products. It's so easy to actually add it. It will take you a couple of minutes to actually create the cognitive services. All of the examples I have provided via the links that I will share. So let's go play from current slide. That's really what I wanted to show you today, that it's easy to get started. Everything's available for you. So in conclusion, it's really simple steps. Have the empathy. Create those persona spectrums. All the slides are available with those, and you can get them freely available. 2 is shift left. Start testing earlier. If you can't test right at the beginning, use your DevOps process. And if you have to test right at the end, you've got the accessibility insights, and also you've got all of the other features and toolings around that. And finally, automate, automate, automate. We want to live in that agile world. We want to be able to be agile. And the key to agile, in my opinion, is to be able to create that DevOps process and integrate with the tooling that I've mentioned to you. So you can access all of this on https://aka.ms/all. You can use your QR code. I'm going to leave this up here. I'm going to take some questions from Justin. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Rory. That was awesome. I really liked that layout, and I think I've seen a couple of other versions of it, of the types of disability. So to remind people that some disabilities are situational or temporary. It's not just permanent disabilities, like the example you gave of only having one arm. Sometimes, you know, I think it reminds people that this could be me, and that seems to help people with empathy. It's just one of those things that people just think, well, it's not me, so I don't need to worry about it. And it's like, well, actually, it can be. It would be nice if people just thought of other people without having to be reminded that, you know, you're looking after yourself as well. But at least it's a stepping stone to help people have that empathy. Again, as you showed on that chart, I thought that was excellent. So a couple of questions I think we've got in the stream here that I'll trying to collate that at the same time. One to start off with is, I think people think that accessibility, like you read through some of the standards and it feels like it's a lot to do all at once. So if you were going to be starting to do this, what's a way that people can just get started on something that they can feel like they're making good progress and it doesn't feel overwhelming?
So the first thing you need to understand is your app or your website or even your Android app. You can use Accessibility Insights for Web, which uses the Axe Core engine, just to get an initial fast pass report on your app, website, or Android app. And it will tell you majority of the issues that you have upfront without having to drill into it. What I didn't show you there, that you can drill into a much more detailed check that goes all the way into a CAG 2.1 AAA. So my answer to you is do the fast pass. Have a feel for what you need to do, and then grab the low-hanging fruit. Add alt images to the alt tags to the images that doesn't have it. Don't go all the way through to video captioning before you have that. And then it's a journey. Once you have that, the manual process, automate. And also, if you battle, use the immersive reader.
Excellent. Let me see, what else do we have on here? Okay, yeah, voice recognition. That's always a bit tricky. But people's accents, and I know you mentioned that English is a terrible language to learn as a second language. I agree with you. Wrestling with it daily, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Some of the language parsing and particularly translation and so on does seem to use, it requires a lot of machine learning type technologies. Are these the kinds of things that you need to actually have connectivity into online services to use, or can they actually be run on an offline, or like low bandwidth situations, or on mobile?
So we have something called Language Understanding Lewis, which is another cognitive service. And what you can do is that you can train Lewis, or these language services, to be able to understand yourself or the service that you're trying to offer, and then you can better it. Just like data. Data erodes, and your machine models erode also. You have to constantly teach it to be able to become accessible. So we have at Microsoft, we have an emotional intelligence team that builds in and constantly readjusts these machine models into Cortana, into our AI, to make sure that the data doesn't actually erode. So to answer your question, is that you need to be able to look at it as a journey, not as a destination. Constantly learn, look at our cognitive services. You can train them up, and then it will, using AutoML, constantly learn against new data sets.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I encourage people to go and look into the chat. I'd grab Rory's talk for some of those resources that you've got there. If you've got any further questions, I think Rory is going to be joining us a little bit later on in the DevOps hallway track. So do drop into there and just drop your questions into that into the track there, and we'll try to get them answered by Rory. We have a short break now, and we'll be coming back with a talk by Julian Goodwin, The Worst Outage I Never Caused. And that'll be starting at 4:35 p.m. in Australian Central Curly Boy time, which will be in, I think my thing tells me that's going to be in about 24 minutes, something around that. Oh, no, actually less than that. I can't maths. It's been a long day. But we'll break here, and we'll see you back here online in a few moments.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.